Do please sit down. I know that some of you are expecting me to open with a lyric from the 1990s girl group, All Saints. A careful scouring of their masterful pop output revealed very little that would be appropriate. Try as I might, I couldn't find a theological segue from their booty call to this joyful feast. Don't misunderstand me. I remain a huge fan of Shaznay, Melanie and the Appleton sisters, but for now the hunt goes on for their divine revelations. Maybe they'll reunite again, and next year's preacher will have more luck. Anyway, that's that out of the way, and now several of you owe me a tenner. We will all have our own favourite saints, those whose lives resonate with our own experience, or whose intercession we have particularly felt. We might be familiar with the places associated with them, such as Rome or Avila or Lisieux or Assisi. Just a few weeks ago, I called into this church as I was preparing for this homily to look around for some inspiration. I wonder what saints they have depicted there, I thought to myself. Pretty soon there was a helpful chap offering me a leaflet detailing all the images in this church, the windows, the reredos, the tiles, and so on. It was a rich diet, and pretty soon I was rather overwhelmed. And we often assume that that's what today is all about, lumping together all those saints we know, all the great and the good whom the Church has recognised by canonisation and whom we can name. But that is not quite the full story. Today is partly about them, but today is also about all those others, those holy men and women who are easily forgotten by us, but not forgotten by God. Today is also about those who have answered the call to holiness and have now attained the beatific vision. Today is about us, the church militant, recognising the whole church triumphant, the church on earth, recognising all the church in heaven. Today is about those listed and unlisted, those celebrated and uncelebrated holy ones of God, who, though we might not know them, nonetheless, they know us. And from their nearer proximity to him, they continually support us with their prayers. They continually make up for what is lacking in our imperfect worship on earth by their unceasing and perfect worship of him in heaven. They have lived out those Beatitudes which we heard in today's Gospel and have now attained those rewards of which Jesus speaks. I'm glad that our translation this evening speaks of blessedness rather than rendering the word as happy, as in some translations. Happiness is an emotion, something we can produce for ourselves by our own efforts. Those of you who owe me one can hand me a tenner after Mass, and that will make me very happy. But blessedness is a gift we receive, a gift given us by God. Blessedness is the state of having become the object of God's blessing. Those saints whom we celebrate today have received this blessing. Indeed, they enjoy that blessed vision, which is the presence of God, whom they now see face to face. They behold his sublime countenance, a sight which for us is as yet unattainable, until we, like them, pass through death and the purification by grace, which is necessary to prepare us for such a vision. To be those who receive this blessedness, Jesus clearly tells us the dispositions required of us. He has listed them for us explicitly. By our receptivity to his blessing, we may become saints. We must be poor in spirit and acknowledge the poverty and wretchedness that would be the state of our own souls without God's grace. We must be gentle and avoid aggression and violence in word, action, and thought. We must mourn and be realistic about our state of sin and that sin leads to death. We must hunger and thirst for righteousness, avoiding sin and actively seeking to do God's will. We must be merciful and seek no retribution for harm done to us, but show the forgiveness to others that God has shown to us. We must be pure in heart and let our morality penetrate our inmost being and not just be a superficial cloak of outward respectability. We must be peacemakers and be those who make peace by our constructive and active pursuit of peace, rather than just the mere passive avoidance of conflict. We must know that we may be persecuted in the cause of right, and be those who do not shy away from the truth of our faith and what it demands of us, not preferring an easier life, but embracing our own sufferings as a participation in the cross of Christ. These Beatitudes show us the spiritual features of Jesus. In truth, the Blessed One par excellence is only him, is only Jesus. Only he perfectly fulfills these Beatitudes. In the Beatitudes, he proclaims the paradox of his kingdom that Mary prefigured in her Magnificat, and he proclaims not a place, but a person, himself. He is the truly poor in spirit, the one afflicted, the meek one, the one hungering for justice, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemaker. He is the one persecuted for the sake of justice. Our vocation is to follow him in these blessed states, accompanied by his saints along the way. And their experiences show that every form of holiness, even though they follow very different paths, always pass through the way of his cross, the way of self-denial, the way of persecution for the cause of right. That is all rather a tall order and a hard task, because this is the narrow way to heaven and not some great meandering highway. We have already been equipped by God to attain all this in our baptism. Baptismal grace is the complete package required for sanctity. Original sin is removed, divine grace is bestowed, and we are set on a path towards heaven. We are invited to become saints, the friends of God. To become a saint requires neither extraordinary actions or works, nor the possession of exceptional charisms. It requires only our participation in him through the sacraments and our obedience to him in his church. The saints are not some small caste of chosen souls, but an innumerable crowd to whom we raise our eyes. This multitude includes the baptized of every epoch and nation who sought to carry out the divine will. We are unacquainted with the faces and the names of many of them, but with the eyes of faith, we may see them shine in God's firmament like glorious stars. They are specks of light reflecting the awesome radiance of God and illuminating the darkness not just of this night, nor just of the shortening days of the approaching winter. They are human icons of his glory, his grace, his peace, which we need so especially as we confront the dark horrors of conflict in the land of the crucible of our faith. The task left to the church militant, to us, is to seek to be like them. We do this by emulating their heavenly behaviour. This liturgy is an evocation of the life of heaven. Here, by his Spirit, God conforms us to the myriad likenesses of his Son and prepares us for the life of heaven by granting us its foretaste. We must be faithful in and to this worship, never laying it aside for other concerns, never being inattentive or impatient with it. For if we are ever tempted to think that it can be long and boring now, then we are going to find eternity very hard work indeed. For the remainder of the task, the Gospel gives us our clues. The Beatitudes from Christ's Sermon on the Mount form the manifesto of the Church which Jesus founds and which he now continues through us. These Beatitudes are alive in the saints we know, but there are many others who lived by them too, because there are many ways to obey this call to sainthood, this call to holiness, this call to be near God, this call to follow Christ, the most blessed one, who asks us to become his blessed ones. So let us join with them in following him. Let us lose ourselves in this great cloud of witnesses, that we may find ourselves in him with them. With them, let us offer all praise, honour, glory and power to the one who is seated on the throne and to the Lamb, forever and ever. Amen.